The Michigan Wolverines ended the 2017 season with one of the youngest rosters they've had under the direction of Jim Harbaugh. Can they turn their youthful athleticism into results on the field which will allow them to reach the highest of heights this season? Friend of the program, Adam Biggers, the assistant sports editor of today's U and FanRag Sports, joined me on Friday to answer the very question, what's the ceiling for UFM? Adam, it's always great to have you on the show, and we're excited to talk some Michigan football with you this morning.
I appreciate you for having me on, Kevin. Thanks.
Adam, let's dive in with this today. I can't help but think that the Wolverines haven't reached their fullest potential under Jim Harbaugh. And if we circle back to his comments during Big Ten Media Day, losing 3 of their last 4 a year ago is really still stuck in his craw. So can you tell me how the team and Harbaugh himself is using that as motivation as they get ready to start a new year?
Yeah, Kevin, those losses were by combined 5 points. Obviously, the Iowa loss was a big one that pretty much knocked them out of playoff contention. The Ohio State loss burned, and it still burns. I think it's motivation for them. The 33-32 loss to Florida State in the Orange Bowl. So I think that they have plenty of motivation. That they know that they lost some pieces last year. They had a historic NFL draft class with 11 guys being drafted and 8 undrafted free agents. So they know that last year they did not finish on a high note. They know that last year they had the schedule and the team to do it. So, yeah, most certainly that those losses from last year are motivating them, but at the same time that they know that they can be a good team. They do have some potential. I think that's motivating them as well.
Now, this is one of the youngest teams that Michigan has had under Harbaugh, especially in the secondary and along the offensive line. So I'm wondering your thoughts on those position groups in particular, and which position group are you most interested to watch play out as we go into regular season play?
Well, the most interesting position group to me would be the defensive line. I think the Michigan's defensive line has been, well, I think everybody knows Michigan's defensive line has been one of the best in the country for the past 2-3 years. The secondary, though, Kevin, you mentioned that it is a young secondary. Mike Zordich earlier in the week was talking about his cornerbacks weren't really playing up to par. He said Lavert Hill was the lone bright spot, that David Long needed to improve. So right now it sounds like that it'll be Josh Metellus and Tyree Kinnell as the safeties, but with David Long and Lavert Hill at corners, those guys are going to have to sharpen up, especially before Florida. Part of me believes that Zordich, wanted to light a fire underneath those guys and get them amped up. Talking to some players, I mean, it sounds like that the corners have done okay, but we have to remember too they're also facing a group of wide receivers that has 4 top 25 recruits coming in, and recruit rankings don't always mean a whole lot, Kevin, but the 4 with DPJ, Tariq, Oliver, and Nico Collins in Michigan signed this year, this is their best recruiting class on paper when it comes to wide receivers. So to me, it shouldn't come as any surprise to hear that the wide receivers are doing well in practice, just like we were hearing that the defensive line was doing well in practice. But at the same time, they do need to sharpen up. So I think with the cornerbacks being young, that would be my main concern right now. My second concern, of course, a little bit of youth on the offensive line. I'm wondering how deep this offensive line is going to go, because with injuries, it can compound matters pretty quickly. So those are the 2 that I'm looking at. I don't think the secondary, I don't think the corners are quite as bad as Mike Zordich made them out to be. But like I said, we're going to find out December 2nd against Florida.
And heading into that game, what are some of the other storylines surrounding that game that you'll be keeping an eye on?
Well, I think right now there's a little bit of buzz coming from the Wolverine.com that Maurice Hurst might have a leg injury. So definitely keep an eye on that. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the country, if not the best. There's another little bit about Rashawn Gary and Chase Winovich maybe being banged up a little bit. And again, this is coming from the Wolverine.com. Another storyline that I would pay attention to was Wilton Speight, how he rises kind of in the face of, I don't want to say adversity, because it's not like he's been through a lot personally, other than, he did have off-season surgery, but just from the aspect of a lot of Michigan fans did not want him as a quarterback. They thought it was Brandon Peters, or they wanted Brandon Peters, and so I think it's worth paying attention to Wilton. I think that Wilton's got the capacity to have an all Big Ten year. I really do. I think that he's got all the tools, the physical makeup, and he's got the mental makeup as well. So that'd be something interesting, I think, to pay attention to. Also, pay attention to the tight end group. The Wolverines have really tried to strengthen that group since Jim Harbaugh arrived in December 30th, 2014. So just in time for the start of recruiting and get going for the 2015 season. Pay attention to the tight end group. I think they're really stacked, Kevin. These guys are all 6'5", 250 and bigger. It's just a huge position group, and based on what we've heard through camp, Tyrone Wheatley is going to be a force. Sean McCune is going to be a force as well. So, and then I think with Zach Gentry in there, we've heard a little bit about Nick Eubanks as well. They're pretty deep at that position. Ian Bunting. I would definitely pay attention to the tight end.
And you led into my next question with part of your answer to the last one, but I'm wondering if you can expand on the growth of the leadership role of Wilton Speight and where you think he can take the Michigan football program this season.
I think mentally Wilton knows that this is his team, and I think that he's got the right blend of cockiness in a good way. I think if you're a Jim Harbaugh quarterback, you have to have a little bit of cockiness. I think Wilton does have that. Of course, as I mentioned, all the numbers are there, Kevin. I won't bore you with all the stats, but all the numbers are there. Trust me on this one. Completion percentage, quarterback rating, the way that he throws the deep ball. There was a graphic to Pro Football, or I think it was Pro Football Focus. Somebody put it out. Sorry for not remembering who, but Wilton returns with the best deep ball accuracy of any quarterback in the Big Ten. So I think that there are all kinds of signs pointing toward Speight taking that next step. And last year, before he got hurt, a lot of people were kind of edging him toward that elite category. He was on his way to that elite category, and then the Wolverines had that late season skid a little bit. So with Wilton, I don't think that there should be any worry. I think if you're a Michigan fan, you should be more than comfortable with Wilton Speight being a quarterback. I've said this time and time again, Kevin. I think if put Wilton Speight in another uniform at any other school, and I bet that fan base would be happy with him. He's just one game. He had one of the best first-year starter debuts in Michigan history. 6'6", he slimmed down to about 223 pounds, lost about 20 pounds. He's a little bit quicker now. There are all kinds of signs pointing toward Wilton Speight having a really great 2017.
And what do you think is the most intriguing storyline surrounding the entire program as they enter another season with Jim Harbaugh?
Well, there are a few. I'm gonna go a little tongue in cheek on you right here. I'm gonna say the roster. I don't know if you've heard about this or not, Kevin, but everybody's making a big deal. Not everybody. Florida coach Jim McElwain and NJ.com are making a big deal about Michigan not releasing its roster. Jim Harbaugh tweeted that it'll be publicized on August 30th. He's still waiting for tryouts to conclude. So, I think the most intriguing storyline right now is who in the heck's on this football team, I guess. If you're McElwain and you're NJ.com, your head's swimming right now trying to figure out who's on the Michigan football team. But I think process of elimination, just take away the guys who were drafted and signed last year, add subtract the transfers. Keith Washington just transferred. Put those guys in that group, and then add on who's coming back, and I think you have a pretty good idea of Michigan's roster. I know that I do, and I think that 99.9% of Michigan beat writers at least have a pretty good idea of the two deep on both sides of the ball, if not a full roster. So I think that of course, joking around, that's kind of been the talk. But I'm really just interested, honestly, and if we get serious here, the 2016 class. I think these guys last year, 23 or 24 of them played. We saw several of them make tremendous strides throughout the year. A guy like Devin Bush is going to be huge for the Wolverines at linebacker. So I'm really interested to see how this 2016 class progresses as sophomores, because Jim Harbaugh was saying that freshman to sophomore leap is the biggest, most important time in a player's development in college.
And going back to the offense for just a second, you've profiled a lot about the running game and the addition of Pep Hamilton to the staff to increase or enhance the passing game. So I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about the running game and the addition of Pep Hamilton to the staff.
Yeah, sure. Starting with the running game, they'll have Jay Harbaugh coaching running backs this year. Greg Fry, a former Indiana offensive coordinator, he's over now as the overall run game coordinator, but he's also coaching tackles and tight ends. There is some talk with Jay's never coached running backs before. He never played the position, but it sounds like from guys that I've talked to, and I think with Greg Fry there too, that's going to be a tremendous asset for Jay. If you just look at their stable right now, Chris Evans, I think, is a lead back. Karan Higdon has been praised upon praise. He's got a burst like nobody's ever seen, according to John O'Corn's backup quarterback. So Ty Isaac's in the best shape that he's been since he's been at Michigan. And I just wrote a column on FanRag Sports about Ty. I think that he's one of those guys that the time is now for him. This is his final year. Are we going to see Ty Isaac at his peak, or are we going to continue to see just sputters of Ty Isaac? I think. And then Kareem Walker as well. Kareem's going to be in that mix. Jim Harbaugh called him probably the best in-between tackle runner that they have. So if you look at just those top four guys with Chris Evans, Karan Higdon, Ty Isaac, and Kareem Walker, I think that the Wolverines have a tool for every job. And then you have Chris, who's that elusive, every down back. He's gained 11 pounds, so maybe that'll increase his durability a little bit. You have Karan Higdon, who's a little pinball, who loves contact, does not shy away from it, and he's not a big guy either. I mean, he's like 5'10", $190. He's not huge. So, and then again with Ty Isaac at 6'3", somewhere in the range of 220 to 230. Ty can do some work and some damage. And then you have Kareem, was a little bit bigger. He's about 6'2", 6'3", 207 pounds, or 6'1", I believe, about 207 pounds. So they're all big, Kareem and Ty have a little bit of size on them. Karan and Chris, they might be a little bit smaller, but they're certainly elusive. And with Karan, I think he's a guy that we're going to see really bounce around and gain those tough yards. I think he's going to be one of those guys that kind of disappears into a pile and comes back out again. If you remember how like Devion Smith did against BYU a couple years ago, I think Karan's going to get those the tough yards, but he's going to do it in a flashy way.
And what about the addition of Pep Hamilton to the staff? How do you think he'll impact the passing game?
Oh, with Pep, I think the thing with Pep is that Jim Harbaugh wanted Pep, and I think any direct link to Jim Harbaugh's quarterback is important, and I think that relationship is important. We saw that develop last year. Jim Harbaugh had a lot of trust with Jed Fish. Jed Fish did a great job as the passing game coordinator. Really helped Wilton in that regard, but at the same time, I think with Pep Hamilton, it just kicked it up a little bit. I remember Wilton saying that it wasn't really a big change, maybe small differences, but in terms of the way that they teach and philosophize about the game. But I think just having that NFL experience on his resume really commands some respect for Pep. Everybody talks about his energy. I guess when you have a name like Pep, you should have a little bit of energy. And so I think what it's going to do, Pep, I don't want to say necessarily likes to go quicker, but he is known for bringing out speed, I guess. And I think with Michigan's offense, I think he's going to bring out the speed a little bit with it. We're going to see a little bit more of an aerial attack. I don't want to say it'll be spreadier, but there will be, I think, a few more spread elements in this offense this season. But with Pep, I think it's just a go. It's a positive all the way around for Michigan, especially when you look at Wilton and these young wide receivers. I think the Pep's really going to bring out the best of those guys.
And when we look at Michigan's schedule, what are your overall thoughts on it, and where could the strength of it be and potential pitfalls as well?
Well, I mean, potential pitfall at Florida. I mean, we're going to see what these guys are made of September 2nd, but, I mean, don't forget the road game at Wisconsin, and then it'll be a road game at Penn State. You get Ohio State at home. I mean, those are – I think it's fair to have Michigan as a 9-3 team. I think 10 wins if some luck happens and some misfortune for other teams, but it's not as easy of a schedule as it was last year, right? I mean, if you look at last year's team, like I said, I believe they had the schedule. I believe that they had the experience. Everything was kind of a perfect storm for them. And you look at those three losses by combined 5 points, that kind of reinforces that. This year it's a much more difficult schedule. I mean, if we just look at the Big Ten, there's 3 teams that are in the preseason top 10 right now with Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin. So I mean and Michigan has to play all those teams. So I think if you're looking at that, it's a little bit more difficult, and they don't have, maybe on paper they don't have quite as much personnel as they did last year.
And when we look at Michigan as a whole, what do you think should be expectations for this particular team in terms of their ceiling? I know you answered it in your last one. And what do you think about what we should expect out of Jim Harbaugh, too, as he sort of has created a hype machine, but they've failed to win the big game under him so far?
Well, I think anything short of beating Ohio State and really being in that mix for a Big Ten championship game, it might make some Michigan fans a little bit uneasy. But at the end of the day, Kevin, it is what it is with these guys. They did lose a lot of talent. It doesn't just reproduce itself overnight. They are talented with some young underclassmen, but I do think that the ceiling for these guys, absolute ceiling, would be 10 wins. And again, that would be with bounces going in their favor, so on and so forth. As far as expecting out of Jim Harbaugh, I mean, it's his 3rd year. I know that Jim came to Ann Arbor with intentions of building a power, and I think that he's on his way to doing that. But this year, I would caution Michigan fans, don't expect everything. Good things come to those who wait, I guess. And I know, it's year 3, and I know that things kind of get sped up a little bit these days with everything's got to be now. I don't see Michigan winning the Big Ten this year, but I think that this just sets them up for an even bigger 2018. Like I said, if expectations, 9 wins, what do I expect out of Harbaugh? He's going to be Jim Harbaugh. I don't expect a whole lot of change with him. He's going to be the same fiery guy. I expect he'll probably ruffle some feathers this year. I expect he'll probably disagree with some calls. I expect that he will, just be himself, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's gonna be a fun year, Kevin. I'm excited for it, and I have to believe that Jim Harbaugh is even thinking about, okay, let's if it's not the next step this year, at least get going in that next step, because last year I think was a window at looking at what the possibilities for Michigan football could be, just in the terms of, okay, they were right there, they were hunting for a playoff spot. I don't think that was just a one-time thing. I think that's going to be a norm under Jim Harbaugh.
Hey, Adam, we want to wish you the best of luck in covering this season of Michigan football, and we want to thank you for your time this morning on the Two Man Advantage podcast. It's always a lot of fun to have you on the show, buddy.
Hey, anytime, Kevin. I appreciate it. And like I said, told you last time, next time you're here, I owe you a steak. You got him last time. I owe you a steak. And tell Alan and everybody over there I said hello, and looking forward to seeing you guys soon.
Sounds good, buddy. Have a good season and a great day, okay?